Good morning. This week's episode of What's Going On With, we are going to talk about technical assistance. And so, technical assistance is one of those things that shows up a lot in things like grants, on government websites, on resource websites for small businesses. It's something Outgrow Garage does a lot of. And today I want to break down what it means, how you find resources that are going to work for your business, and how, if you are a business support organization, you are able to actually provide the type of technical assistance that is going to work for your constituents. The other thing we're going to touch on this week is how to look at something like a grant or a funding application that says, hey, we're going to pay for you to provide technical assistance, and how you can figure out if what your people need is what will actually show up in that technical assistance. As usual, um, I have not done a ton of prep work for this because what's going on is a live thing that is specifically used to demonstrate what you can do as a business owner without a ton of time or preparation. As a background, I am Jessie Berg, the founder of Outgrow Your Garage. Every week on Wednesdays at 10 a.m., we do an episode of What's Going On With, about a given topic that is focused on small business support or organizations that are working on providing support to small business owners. Sometimes we have resources that are directly relevant to entrepreneurs. Sometimes we have resources that are for the organizations that support those entrepreneurs. And sometimes we have business owners on who are just talking about their industry and how that operates. You can always find all of the What's Going On videos on our YouTube channel in the What's Going On playlist. Like I said, most of them are live, some of them are pre recorded. So you can always find them all together there. So let's dive into technical assistance. So, first up, what is technical assistance? And so, when we're talking about it, this is a term that shows up a lot, mostly on government websites, but sometimes on foundation websites, where they say things like, um, we are going to support organizations that provide technical assistance. And so sometimes this means they are going to support entrepreneurs through whatever that government program is to access the technology to do that. Sometimes it means they're going to teach entrepreneurs new technical skills. Right now, if you are doing any sort of work in AI, we are recording this on May 6th, 2026. AI is very big right now. And so a lot of the funding that is available for technical assistance programs is focused on getting business owners and companies and communities up to speed with AI. How long that will last, I don't know. Technology changes really quick. And so that's the other thing with technical assistance in general, is what a community needs is always going to change based on what the expectations are. Uh, so let me share my screen here. I pulled up a couple of pages that I think are going to be helpful for this. And so, step one, if you're looking into technical assistance programs, I want to look at what happens when you put this into a search engine. I'm using Google because it is the most common. You can also use DuckDuckGo or Bing or whatever else your preferred search engine is. Oh, excuse me. So first thing that comes up here is a sponsored result. So that's not super helpful. When we think of technical assistance, the search engine is like, oh, you mean IT, information technology support, improved text efficiency. And so sometimes when we think of technical assistance, we are talking about that piece of technical efficiency. Those are also our first couple of results. Is this affordable small business support, IT support, business loans, um, and then our AI overview starts with small business development centers, SBDCs, which are a real organization. They are available in every state. They provide great resources for small businesses. So if you're a business owner, check out your local SBDC. They provide free confidential technical assistance, including business planning, marketing, financial management, and technology commercialization. Specialized programs help with government contracting, apex accelerators, employee ownership, securing capital, etc. And so it is pulling this information from treasury.gov, and let's see where else we're pulling this from. Um, treasury.gov. What are the other five? It's not going to tell me where else it is pulling it from. About the source. Yeah. So treasury.gov, when they think about small business, they are primarily talking about access to credit capital, right? They are talking about how do you get more money into small businesses. Having access to capital is a huge problem, which is also why you will often see financial assistance and technical assistance kind of rolled in together. And so let's see if they have the actual quote that Google pulled. Um, no. And so, oh, here we go. State territorial technical assistance program summaries. So this is a government website. And so government websites are typically going to aggregate things that are focused on government programs. Government programs are typically going to be focused on one of two areas. One is broad scale economic growth over a big area. They are interested in how do you have more exports for a given state, or how do you get a business to go from a small business to a large business? How do you get millions of dollars moving through the economy? The other thing that they're typically going to be focused on is specific population work, where they're saying, okay, we want to do technical assistance programming for a specific population so that that population is better able to do big business work. Government programs are typically going to be focused on how do you do bigger work, and then also how do you get government contracts. And so a lot of your government programs, and one example of this is the Minority Business Office in Colorado. Their charter is actually to get more business owners enrolled into the Minority Business Program and get the Minority Business Certification from the state of Colorado. So all of their technical assistance programs are going to be helping people through these online learning courses. So when they offer technical assistance, it is really focused on how do you get businesses to get through these guide courses, idea learning pathway courses, how do you help people access this online learning? Um, And so if you're in Colorado, that is a cool program. The goal of that program really is to help business owners get into the Minority Business Certification Program. If you are not interested in doing government contracting, then these courses are maybe going to be a little bit useful, but they are not necessarily going to be as useful as if you are filling out the paperwork in order to get that government certification. Um, and so we'll go back to this one. So other states are all under this treasury.gov website. And so let's look at, we can pick Arizona for this. So here are some options for Arizona, where the Arizona Commerce Authority has selected 4 organizations to provide legal, accounting, and financial advisory services to very small and underserved businesses preparing to apply for financial support from state and or federal small business programs, including connecting companies directly with Arizona's SSBCI capital program, which stands for, this was on the last page, the State Small Business Credit Initiative is what that stands for. And so through this, you can see what different pieces. As you can see, it says it's technical assistance, but it's really focusing on preparing entrepreneurs and small business owners to access capital. So they're really working on how do we get more business owners to take out loans, put that money, grow, and put that money back into the economy. And so there's a little bit on a law program that focuses on working with businesses on registrations, licenses, and general business formation. Um, this one works on contracts and legal services related to obtaining capital. And then it talks a little bit about how that technical assistance actually shows up. So education, peer groups, group mentoring, one-on-one support for businesses that want to apply for funding. So you can kind of see how technical assistance and financial programs are typically very, very linked. One thing that is also true, and so this is from the US Department of Education website, and this is something based from 2016. I'm not actually certain how old. See if we can find out how old this website came up, because it just searched for, this page was last reviewed August 27th, 2025. And so this showed up just when I Googled technical assistance in general. And so um, from the Department of Education, technical assistance across grant programs to address state needs through one-on-one individualized support for states to solve specific state needs, to problem solve specific state needs. Whew, that was a lot of rough things. And so they also want to build awareness of information and resources in response to needs identified in the field through ongoing guidance and technical support to all states. That doesn't really say anything. What does that mean? And then here's some resources for education. Again, these are all from 2017, so they're pretty old in terms of how these state plans work. Um, that's 9 years ago. And so how we thought about technical assistance 9 years ago is pretty different than how it might happen now. Again, the funding for school improvement, this is from 2018. Um, so you want to be intentional about where you're looking for your resources. And so um, yeah, so there's a lot of different pieces on that. So one thing that is true about technical assistance, and I pulled up the Outgrow Your Garage website here. And so when we think about technical assistance, what we're really looking at in a lot of places is how do we help entrepreneurs and communities gain the skills that they need in order to participate in the digital economy. And so, from our perspective, technical assistance is really designed to literally bridge the digital gap of if you haven't had access to newer technologies, you haven't had access to high speed internet, how do you gain the skills in order for your business to be able to work within changing digital expectations? So, we define technical assistance as helping businesses learn and maintain the technical skills needed to keep up with changing digital expectations. And so, for that, you're really going to want to look at programs on bridging, whoops, bridging the digital divide, and really thinking about that. And so the digital divide talks about ensuring universal access to affordable, high-speed internet, necessary hardware, and digital literacy training. This is coming from a YouTube link from the Washington State office. Let's check that out. Want to play it. This is from the Washington State Office of Equity, where it's pulling that information. I have not watched this video, but it says across Washington State, families, students, and tribal communities are still fighting for access to reliable, affordable internet. Bridging the Digital Divide shares personal stories of resilience from students doing homework in library parking lots to tribal leaders using technology to preserve culture and language. Featuring voices from rural towns, disability advocates, and policymakers, this film highlights the urgent need for digital equity, why it matters for education, jobs, and community well-being, and how local leaders are working to close the gap. It's not just about connection, it's about opportunity, inclusion, and the future. So their view of technical assistance, or their view of the digital divide, is very similar to how Outgrow Your Garage thinks about technical assistance. So depending on what you're looking for, if you are wanting to focus on how do you literally become able to participate in the digital world, you're looking at programs that are going to focus on reducing the digital divide. If you are looking for things that are going to help entrepreneurs access capital, whether that's grants, loans, then you're going to be looking at things like technical assistance programs, which is kind of an interesting divide when we think about it. And so, um, one of the things that I find to be true is, and one of the things that tends to be true when we think about the digital divide, right, is we're really looking at how do people who have not typically had access or interest in learning and keeping up with new technologies, how do we continue helping anyone in that situation participate in an increasingly digital world? And when I say increasingly digital, I don't just mean now we do a lot of video conferences and you can get lots of apps on your phone. I also mean the expectation that everybody has a credit card and you're able and all businesses are able to take a credit card. I also mean the expectation that most businesses have a website beyond just a Facebook, or that they even have a Facebook. The expectation that you are able to email a business owner as opposed to just call them. So these different pieces where if you have been running a business for a long time and you started that business, if you are looking at retirement, you're part of what they call the silver tsunami, which is the number of business owners who've been running their business for 30, 40, 50 years, and they're looking at retirement now. And what happens to those businesses? If you've been running a business for a long time and that business is located somewhere where you haven't needed to take credit cards, or your business is older than websites and you have your set client base, if you're looking to sell, then you're not going to have a lot of these things that people expect. Or if you want to expand your business, you need to have some of these different pieces. And so, from a business growth perspective, one of the big things that communities need to do is help businesses create those different pieces of how do you get a website? How do you set up the ability to take credit cards? How do you build that into your financial metrics? How do you think about what you actually need in terms of a piece of software or managing a CRM, which stands for Client Relations Manager? So, a lot of the actual technical assistance that business owners need isn't really called technical assistance, it's really called digital divide work. And so, today I wanted to showcase that a little bit and talk about how that operated, particularly now as we are getting more and more places that have access to the internet, um, and have businesses that they can help access those different pieces. So, some other resources that are available in that space, there are some funding pieces that are available if you are trying to teach businesses about AI and using AI. There are some grants available. A good spot to look for grants is going to be your grants.org. Um, and if you look for business, if you look for business, we'll call it technical assistance grants, technical assistance grants. Um, you can search that, and then there are some available from the Economic Development Administration. Um, Outgrow Your Garage is a US based company, so most of the resources we deal with are going to be US based. And so the government here, and let me make this a little bit bigger so it is easy for people to read. So, in the National Technical Assistance piece, the National Technical Assistance Program funds projects that provide technical assistance with a national scope. These projects support best practices among communities trying to solve problems related to economic development goals. And so, the National Technical Assistance Program supports activities that are beneficial to the economic development community nationwide and includes, but is not but it's not limited to outreach, training, and information dissemination. It can also aid with implementation of economic development, best practices, and proven techniques. So we're back to that original goal of how can we help communities participate in large economic growth. Um, and so when you're looking at these project examples, Harvard Business School was a grantee and looked at regional business environments in the US. National Technical Assistance for Revolving Loan Operators. Revolving loan funds are a really, really cool program where you can get an initial grant into a community. And then you have this loan that you can distribute out to entrepreneurs. And once the initial funds are paid back into the fund, then you can use it for whatever piece you want in terms of economic development. So the initial grant has to, or the initial loans have to fall within specific categories set by the lending program. And typically those are just, they can't be within any industries that are federally prohibited, and the money has to be legit and above board. Um, and so you can use those as a way to keep money in your community. So it's like a hyper local bank, but it doesn't actually have to be backed by a bank. The Center for Rural Innovation, and so that really focuses on an economic development model that works to educate and train residents in digital skills, employ them in new economy jobs, and empower them to launch the startups that will drive their digital economy. So we're really focused on this startup growth. Startups typically means tech companies, but not always. Sometimes it means manufacturing. But typically, anytime you see the word startup, it is a business that is going to be investable and able to grow beyond the confines of a community. So it is often not going to be something like a trades business. It's not going to be a service based business. It's probably not going to be a coffee shop or a movie theater or one of these businesses that kind of becomes like a community institution. It's typically going to be something like a tech company that has the ability to work outside of the community. It might be a manufacturing community where you're able to export those goods outside of the communities. Or in some cases, it could potentially be an owner who is looking at setting up a franchise model where maybe it's a coffee shop and they're going to do franchises kind of all around a given regional area, but that's a little less common. So yeah, so here are current projects. Note that this does not say how you currently apply for any technical assistance programs, just that there are project examples. And so let's see what we have under applicant resources. Um, the the Research and National Technical Assistance Program is not accepting or evaluating new concepts at this time, but here is a set of questions that it might work. Of does it fall within the constraints of this program? How will it help economic development? How does the project align with these investment priorities? How will outcomes and outputs be measured? Um, so the other thing is things like tag programs. A technical assistance grant helps communities participate in Superfund cleanup decision making. So it's helping get people into that space of how do we apply for grant funding. So you can start with some of these things. There's also, let's say it's grants.gov or grants.gov. Yeah, grants.gov. So this gives federal funding, all of your different federal funding grants all in one place. And then if you have, I'm going to use the Delta County Library because I know they have the option Delta Library. I live in Delta, and so we'll use this. If you go into your library, typically you are going to have, this has the Colorado Grants Guide. So if you are a library member, typically your library is going to have some way for you to search grants. And I don't know if they have, no, they don't have any other ones in there. But so yeah, so you can always check your local library and see what happens, what's in there. This one is pretty focused on nonprofits. So grants are typically going to go to a nonprofit and see what happens when, and then the money can be funneled down to whatever the target population is. And so we can look at the Colorado Grants one for sign in. No, that's not the right thing. I haven't actually ever signed into that one. So we'll go back to the main thing. And so, like I said, at the beginning of this, I don't do a ton of research into this because I think it's really valuable to be able to see how this stuff happens organically and what the way that you look for information is. This is how I look for information. This is how Operator Garage teaches entrepreneurs and people how to look for information, where we know a little bit, but we're always kind of digging into what what's out there, what happens, and what are the latest resources. Because the other thing that is true is you are always going to need a grasp on what's happening now for a lot of programs, not information that's old, particularly right now where a lot of things are changing very rapidly in terms of what programs are being funded and where money is coming from. And we've seen a lot of dollars become more tight over the last couple of years, in terms of both grants and loans. It's harder to get a loan now because interest rates are really high. So it can be tricky for that. So if you are looking, here is the grants.gov page. And so we'll look for technical assistance for businesses. Let's see what comes up. So there are three. One is on manufacturing, one is on agricultural development and information, and one is a commercial readiness pilot from the National Institute of Health. And so we'll look at manufacturing in America because that's from the Small Business Administration. And so this one is focused on inviting proposals for funding from established organizations interested in providing innovative, hands-on, in-person manufacturing training and technical assistance to eligible small manufacturing business concerns under the U.S. Small Business Administration's Empower to Grow program. So that one is really focused on that manufacturing piece of how do you help a small manufacturer get bigger. So, like I said, that's where a lot of the funding is going to come, is in these key industries. And actually, there aren't any AI grants that showed up in that search, so that's kind of cool. The last time I looked, there were a bunch in like technical assistance for AI and helping businesses use AI. If we just look for technical assistance, then we are looking, then we have a lot more options. So this one is old, from April 2023. So let's filter this for just currently open ones. So there's 51 opportunities that are currently open. Um, and so a lot of these are EDA, which stands for the Economic Development Administration. So a lot of grants are going to come from there. Here's this coordinating agricultural development one. Um, Rural Micro Entrepreneur Assistance Program. Let's see what that one looks like. And so this one provides loans and grants to micro enterprise development organizations to provide training and technical assistance to microloan borrowers and micro entrepreneurs. And so micro entrepreneurs typically means less than 5 employees. And microloans are, they don't really have like a set dollar amount, but a lot of times they're less than 10,000. And so when you're looking at, see what this fact sheet says. This looks at rural areas, which are populations fewer than 50,000. And the maximum term is 20 years. And so this is the loan of 50 to 500,000 can be used to establish a rural microloan revolving program. So this is your revolving loan program fund, where you can get money, and the micro lenders are focused on having working capital for businesses, debt refinancing, purchasing equipment, supplies, and improving real estate. So really helping with that business growth. So yeah, so those are some things happening in the world of technical assistance. It is a really big, broad term that sometimes means nothing and sometimes means helping people access digital skills, or more often working through the things that they need in order to have capital. So I hope you enjoyed this, or at least this ability to do a little bit of research in how to find grants, in what different terms mean. As always, leave opinions or thoughts or questions in the comments. You can hit like and subscribe, I hear is the thing you say at YouTube channels now. And we will be back next week, and enjoy y'all's week.